Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Tuesday, December 15th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. We talk Royals today with Lynn Worthy. There's been a flurry of activity with the team over the past week or two, the latest being the signing of reliever Greg Holland, who was terrific for the Royals in the abbreviated 2020 season. We also chat about the signing of Carlos Santana and catch up on other Royals news. As Lynn says, the hot stove is heating up. After a break, we'll hear what Dayton Moore had to say about the Holland signing, and then we'll play a panel discussion about the Royals that aired on MLB Network on December 8th. Ken Rosenthal and Ron Darling discuss the Santana signing, and I think you'll find it interesting. But first, here's Lynn Worthy. Hey, Lynn, how you doing today?
Doing all right.
Seems like when we talk, this has happened a couple times with our conversations, that we record this typically in the late morning, as we're doing today on Tuesday, and then the Royals make noise and news in the afternoon, and that was the case last week. You and I were talking about we're talking about Mike Minor and Michael Taylor, I think, and then they signed Carlos Santana, or announced the signing of Carlos Santana in the afternoon. We're going to get to Carlos Santana, but there has been even another development since then, and that is the Royals re-signing Greg Holland. And what do we get? Give us the details of the contract with Greg Holland. Club didn't release it, but you found out.
Yeah, it's a 1-year deal. He's going to get base salary $2.75 million, with up to another $1.5 million in performance bonuses.
Okay.
So yeah, the stove is officially hot, I think, especially compared to the rest of Major League Baseball.
Yeah. After a break, we're actually going to hear a little bit of a roundtable on from MLB.com or the MLB Network, I should say, about this. And when the Royals can, work their way into the conversation on the national level, then they're swinging the bat, and which is something Santana doesn't always do. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So Greg Holland returns. I think this is a move that everybody's nodding in agreement with, and it's based on the success that he had in 2020. It's just an abbreviated season, but Greg Holland really returned to form that folks that remember him from especially the 2014, but 14 and 15 seasons that they remember.
Yeah, and I mean, he's not throwing 95, if that's the if you look at return to form in terms of velocity, but he's still as effective as any pitcher they have in their bullpen. I think his ERA last year was in that shortened season was like a 1.9. The WHIP was under 1. He had more than a strikeout per inning. He had 6 saves, and most of those came down the stretch after Trevor Rosenthal was traded away. So I mean, and he pitched in different roles. I mean, he was a guy who they might bring him in in the 7th inning, depending on where they were in the lineup. He pitched in extra innings in that tie game situation. I think the first win of the season, I think he might have actually recorded that win, if I remember right, because I think he pitched he might have pitched that 10th inning, or maybe he pitched the 9th inning, I'm not sure, in Cleveland. And so, yeah, he's and just his experience. I mean, when you look at the guys that have gotten the bullpen, especially you take Rosenthal out, most of those guys are still fairly young in their careers. I mean, you got Barlow, you got Stallmont, you got Hahn, who's converted to a reliever. You got a guy like Kyle Zimmer. So he's Tyler Zuber. He's the veteran to sort of anchor that group of guys that you think got potential, but you're not entirely sure what they're going to be, as finished products.
Yeah, I like that idea of Holland as a kind of a veteran presence, a mentor for the younger arms in the bullpen. What do you see the same role for him in 2020, 2021, or does it get adjusted a little bit?
I think, and going back to, I think it was 2 weeks ago, talking to Mike Matheny on the phone, and I think there's still that sense that they're going to stick with not a true designated closer where, okay, the whole goal is to get to this guy in the 9th inning. I think, Obviously Holland could be that closer guy, but depending on the matchup, depending on the situation, they may use him in, what they dub high leverage situations. And like I say, going back to a couple of weeks ago, it sounded like at that point they didn't know for sure Holland was going to be back, but it sounded like they were still leaning towards not having necessarily a set closer and going with the hot hand, depending on where you are in the lineup, depending on the situation in that point in the game. So I think it's going to be similar, but it definitely, as far as a veteran presence leader down there in the bullpen, he's definitely still going to have that role. You just may see multiple guys, save games, and I think down the stretch of last season there were, I want to say, 5 different guys who had saves, or I guess after Rosenthal left, there were still maybe 4 other guys. It was Holland, Hahn, Barlow, Newberry all had saves, and that's not even counting Stallmont.
Yeah, yeah, it really was by committee. I was so impressed with Holland's movement on the ball. That's what a lot of Royals fans remember from the pennant winning years. It wasn't his velocity as much as the movement, and he's absolutely. If he had lost any of the control there, it was regained in last year. And listen, the signing played to good reviews, as did the one week ago, Carlos Santana, a absolute pain in the butt to the Royals throughout his Cleveland career, and now he's going to wear a Royals uniform. That'll be fun to see for Royals fans if he can. I don't know, replicate more of his 2019 season than his 2020 season at bat. He still drew the walks. He's still, and we need to talk about that, with the value of that. But just about getting his swing back, his contact back. What are the prospects for Carlos Santana? First of all, in the lineup, and then kind of what do you expect from him as a player?
Well, that was one of those things that I think going back to the beginning of the offseason, Dayton Moore had talked about a middle of the order bat. And he was like, okay, well, that sounds good. Let's see what they end up with. You weren't sure if they were going to be maybe going for some young guy and some upside, or what that was going to look like. And they go and they get a guy who's had 30 home run seasons, who's won a Silver Slugger, who was an All-Star, not 5-10 years ago. I mean, that Silver Slugger and All-Star appearance were in 2019, the last full season that you saw. He's a guy who has hit really well in Kauffman Stadium. I mean, he's treated that place like it was his own personal home ballpark.
Yeah.
Seemed like for years, and also one of the you get the sort of the twofer, because he's taken from a division rival, and he's one of the best, most productive hitters in Indians history, in terms of, or I should say, the soon-to-be no longer Indians history.
Right.
So yeah, he's definitely a middle of the order bat. I mean, he's I was guessing. I think we did one. Pete and I did something that we put online where we sort of guessed at the lineup, and I think I put him at potentially 5th behind Salvi and Soler, but you could also see him maybe in that 4 spot. He's a switch hitter, so you don't have to worry about necessarily being too left-handed or right-handed. He takes care of that for you. And he's, like you mentioned, an on-base guy. He's not so much a feast or famine, strikeout or home run. Even in this past season where he didn't have a great average, he batted 199. That on base was still 349, which I think for that 2020 season, for what it's worth, that 349 on base still puts him above. I think that puts him above Witt. I think that puts him above Dozier. That put him above a few of your main guys in the lineup this past year. I'm not sure if that was above Salvi or not, because Salvi was obviously red hot, but it was above Soler. I mean, so this is a guy who, is not just a swing for the fences guy.
Yeah, look, it's never been the Royals' way to draw walks. It just hasn't been. They're a put the ball in play, free swinging organization. I don't know if that's philosophical. I guess to some extent it is philosophical, basically allowing players to do that. They do it. You hear about other organizations, like Twins are one that they do preach the patience at the plate, but Santana certainly that's his MO, right? He is a patient hitter, and And I think that'll bring great value to the lineup. Which, and you're right, you and Pete Gradhoff put together a projected lineup for 21. You had Witt leading off, Monty in the 2 hole, then Perez and Soler 3 and 4, Santana hitting 5th, Hunter Dozier playing third base, by the way, hitting 6th, Franchi Cordero in left field hitting 7th, Michael Taylor, the other free agent newcomer, hitting 8th, and Nicky Lopez batting 9th. So a deeper lineup than what we saw last year, in my opinion. There's still a little bit of softness at the bottom when it comes to there's no power there for sure, but I think people would look at that lineup and say that's a little bit more of a competitive batting order and lineup than what the Royals had most of last year. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, and I mean, as far as the power, I mean, you're taking Nicky out of that, in that you're betting on upside there when you talk about like Franchi and Michael Taylor. But I mean, Taylor's a guy who had a 19 home run season a couple years
Right.
ago, and power was one of the things that they talked about that they felt like set him apart. I mean, because obviously there's the defense and the speed, but the fact that he's displayed power and he's displayed it at the big league level. I mean, I know he did it all the way coming up through the minors too. I remember, this is probably going back to 13 or 14. I remember seeing him in Double A, and it wasn't the scout of the ballpark when he was in the Nationals system that didn't fall in love with Michael Taylor just because of just his athletic ability and power and everything else. So I mean, he's athletically, this is a gifted guy. He's just he's had seasons where he struggled to be consistent at the plate. But his 2017 season, I think, was where he had the 19 home runs, and so he's shown the power. It's just obviously consistency is the big thing there. And then Cordero is another guy that physically is gifted, and has shown even just at the end of last season, show those flashes with the home runs that he had in that game. I think it was against the Cardinals, and he's been a guy who's shown potential to be a 5-tool type guy with his raw abilities. Again, consistency and staying healthy has been his main thing. But so if those guys make good on some of that promise, and that's 7-8 in your lineup, that's not a bad place to be at.
Right. Hey, also going on with the Royals, I thought this was funny. Salvador Perez has been picking up hardware, quite a lot of hardware in the last week and a half. He was named I'm sure I got this right, the American League Comeback Player of the Year. He was on the All Major League Baseball team. And some of the reaction that I saw from fans was, well, we didn't know they had those awards. Now, is it maybe it's because Royals haven't won them in a while, and it's been since the pennant winning teams that the Royals were winning any kind of individual awards, and even then they didn't win many. It was they weren't certainly not the baseball writers awards. They didn't win a Cy Young or an MVP in those. I don't think Ned Yost certainly wasn't Manager of the Year, but nice little haul for Salvador Perez and he did have a terrific year. I know he missed a few games with the injury, but when he was hot before he got injured, and he got injured, and then he came back and stayed hot, and that was that was such a good sign for the Royals to see him return after missing all of 2019, return with the type of bat that he had.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I want to say the All MLB team. I think that may only be a few years old, but it's also across Major League Baseball as opposed to All Star, where it's just in your league. So I mean, like for a season like this year, obviously shortened season, but you're measuring him up against guys like JT Realmuto, who's everybody thinks is sort of the prize of the free agent class this year. And people sort of have dubbed him as maybe the best catcher in baseball all around right now, or at least just skill set wise. That's one of the guys he beat out, and then Travis d'Arnaud, who had one of the best offensive seasons of his career, and was a big catalyst for the Braves. Those were the other guys he was up against. Again, National League guys, so not just an American League award. And the comeback player, I feel like, has been given out for a while. I mean, that's it obviously the bittersweetness of that is the fact that you got to be coming off of something pretty,
Right.
significant to be in the running. Yeah. you had to have a setback to be able to have the comeback to win that award. So obviously you don't want that. But I mean, um, I think there is also you look at it and say maybe last year we were. Or maybe there was some for Royals fans or in the organization, there was some hopefulness about what Salvi would be when he came back, but I don't know if there was certainty. I mean, this was his age 30 season, coming off of major elbow surgery at the catcher position, and maybe there was some, you could have made the case. It's like, okay, you think you know what you're going to get, but you don't know until it actually happens after a whole year off. And for him to come back and be, arguably the best hitter in that lineup this year, and to be, his normal presence behind the plate and to work with that pitching staff, I mean, that's got to be encouraging.
Absolutely. And another piece of news that has occurred in the last week or so, the Royals, it was determined what the minor league stops are going to be for the Royals going forward. And it doesn't change at the top. Omaha will continue to be the AAA affiliate, and Northwest Arkansas in AA. But it did change beneath that. And listen, I don't know how significant it is that the affiliations change, except for just a couple things. Wilmington had been a long time affiliate of the Royals. All the Royal stars that came up through the system came through Wilmington, and so there was a nice exchange of pleasantries, if you will, between the Blue Rocks and the Royals when it happened. But I thought it was one thing I thought was interesting was when word got out that Columbia, South Carolina was leaving. I forget the Mets, I think, right? Weren't they a Mets?
Yeah, they were the Mets, low A, and the South Atlantic League.
Right. For some reason, you knew you were kind of in on that from the beginning. You had an inkling that that was going to be the Royals, low A or what single A affiliate, and it turns out that's true. That in the Quad Cities Bandits in Iowa will be the two Royals below AA. So I guess the thing that's newsworthy and interesting here is there was only 4, right? Every major league team is just going to have 4. Is that right? Or how is it going to work in minor league baseball this year?
Yeah, 4 full season affiliates. So, I mean, as opposed to where you had, a short season team, a rookie ball team. I mean, you could still have your, and that's, I should say, 4 full season domestic affiliates, because you could still have a Dominican Summer League team, and you could still have a team that runs out of your facility. So for the Royals, that would be out of surprise, but you're not going to have, for the Royals, you're not going to have, Idaho Falls. You're not going to have Burlington. The rookie league teams, you're not going to have those for some of their teams that had short season teams that up in sort of like the Northeast, like where I grew up in the New England area. The New York Penn League has sort of been sort of taken apart, and so you won't have those teams where guys come straight out of college, and usually that might be one of the first places they go to play the short season starting in late June. That's not going to be the case anymore. So now it's just going to be basically a low A, a high A, double A, and triple A as far as full season affiliates. And you might still have guys, teams that you run out of your facilities in Arizona and Florida. But that's what the new look is going to be. And I think that was sort of the rumored thing going back to almost this time last year, and then it pretty much became solidified once the Mets. I think as soon as Sandy Alderson became the new head of baseball, and they announced a new owner, and Sandy was asked about who their affiliates were going to be, and he ran down to 4. That pretty much set it in stone, and everybody knew. 1, you knew that it was going to be 4, and 2, you knew that Columbia was on the outside looking in of the on as far as the Mets
right
situation. And that's where I mean, having covered some minor league baseball in different places over the years, I heard the rumor that it was going to be Quad Cities and Columbia. I just wasn't able to quite get it set in stone, but it sort of made sense too, because as you talked about Wilmington and Quad Cities share an owner as well, so it made sort of an easy fit or transition, I guess you should say.
Right. So you grew up with the New York Penn League, and I kind of grew up with the Appalachian League.
Mm-hmm.
And to my understanding now, that's going to be a summer college league. For I don't know how it's going to work with the other rookie leagues, but I know the Appalachian League they're talking about being a summer college league. So good for the small towns that that's how people pass summer nights in June, July, and into early August. There's 60 games season, 30 games at home, and I remember those days well. So. I hope a lot of those towns can continue to have baseball in some way. So
yeah, and we probably definitely shouldn't skip over the fact Lexington looks, at least right now, like it's probably going to end up going independent. I mean, and people know Lexington Legends obviously had some championship teams in recent years with some of the top prospects in the Royal system. It looks like they're not on the list of teams that's going to be affiliated as of right now, and it looks like they're looking at going independent and sort of trying to look at it as a positive. And this past year, they actually did play some games with players that they just sort of signed themselves and put together a roster themselves. And considering where they're located, that seems like it might be a good fit for them. They just won't, it doesn't look like they'll be in affiliated baseball, which is a little bit of a hit, but sounds like they're trying to make it a positive and maybe play more to their local fan base and build their own team. And we'll see what league they end up landing in.
Yeah, and just another somewhat of a local note, Wichita thought, they built a new stadium downtown, thought it was going to get a AAA team, ends up with a AA team. So all kinds of movement on the minor league level this offseason. So, okay, we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we're going to hear from Dayton Moore on the Greg Holland signing, and then after that, you will hear a little bit of a panel discussion on the MLB Network. Ken Rosenthal and Ron Darling talking about some of the Royals' offseason moves and honing in this specifically on Carlos Santana. So, hey, Lynn, it was great catching up with you, and we'll do it again soon.
Thanks.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
We felt like we made tremendous strides last year with the bullpen. Greg Holland was a huge part of that. I mean, he anchored our pen in a way that gave us a lot of comfort and security and allowed people to kind of settle into some roles. I know Mike feels extremely comfortable with running Holly out there in any scenario, any situation. And so it was important for us to try to get Holly back. And of course, there's a comfort level here, a trust level. And, this is where he wanted to be. And we certainly wanted him here. So I'm glad we were able to bring him back again. We signed him, back out of the draft in 2007. He's been a big part of the success of our organization. He's fearless in any situation. He's very resilient, a great competitor, and that type of attitude certainly rubs off on, the rest of the pitching staff. And so to see him come back from adversity, which he has throughout his career, and to see him, back in a Royals uniform is very rewarding. As I said before, we signed him out of the draft, and we have a lot of comfort and trust in Greg Holland.
Some other news also involving a team in the AL Central. That'd be Carlos Santana with the Kansas City Royals. Now, when it comes to Santana, he had a bad year in 2020. Hit 199, 699 OPS. But you know one thing about him, always gets on base. AL leading 47 walks, a 349 on-base percentage. This is a 2-year, $17.5 million deal. You don't often think, Kenny, KC making moves, but Santana, that's an interesting pickup for them.
Sure is, and it's not the only one that they've made. Remember, Mike Minor, 2 years, $18 million. Michael Taylor to a much lesser deal, but that's 3 free agents. agents. And as well, they tendered 5 of their arbitration guys and signed them last week, including Soler, to a fairly significant salary when a lot of other teams were going the non-tender route. Now, they non-tendered Michael Franco and they non-tendered Bubba Starling as well, but they have spent some money here. And it's interesting at a time when so many teams are saying that, hey, we had incredible operating losses last year, and I'm sure the Royals did too, that they are taking this course. They are clearly not saying, we're rebuilding, not this year. They're trying to take a step forward, and that is traditionally what they've done under Dayton Moore, even though they've been at times in a rebuilding situation.
Yeah, you look at it this way. With Alex Gordon retired, I mean, if he didn't retire, you'd have to pay him a salary, right? That would be significant. They've really taken it and reinvested in the ball club, and I think that's fantastic. They've got a lot of talented players around that diamond, whether it's Merrifield and others. Witt Jr. is on his way. The hardest part really is to determine those young players and how they developed with a season of COVID. But you see that lineup with Mondesi and Salvador Perez and Santana, Soler. 2 seasons ago, Soler had a breakout season. Dozier probably moves to third base now, Santana to first. But they've made some good moves, some solid moves that is going to make them better than last year.
And with their young pitching, it's the kind of team that could jump a little bit. Maybe not, because young pitching, of course, is inconsistent or can be. But they are very confident in their young arms, and they believe they're going to make an impact starting this year.
Yeah, that's what's unique about KC, Ronnie, is normally teams like this, the Midwest, obviously coming off a really tough season, you say, okay, you're all or nothing. Are you either trying to tank, so to speak, or are you trying to go for it all? It's hard to hedge, but I think KC, they're being smart about where to spend those dollars.
Dayton Moore probably walks that line for a small market team better than anyone in the game as far as what Kansas City tries to do every year, and that is put out a really solid ball club.
Also helps you in a division where there's no real juggernaut. I think the White Sox are the best, Twins are good, but this isn't like you say, oh my goodness, we have no chance of catching the Dodgers, so to speak, in the West.
Well, Cleveland's going backwards, right? They're going to trade Lindor, and they're cutting payroll. The Tigers are coming, but it's not there yet. And I don't expect it to be there in 21, though there are some promising signs. So, yes, the Twins are a force. The White Sox are clearly a force. But at the same time, who's to say the Royals can't, perhaps with an expanded playoff system that we don't know will be there yet, make a run here?
Best barbecue in the country, Kansas City? That's
not a question. Yeah, the burnt ends. Come on. Come on.
That's a lot.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Beth Welsh, Randy Mason, Jeff Rosen, Chris Pickett, and Savannah Smith. Tip of the cap to Lynn Worthy for stopping by and talking Royals. Links to his stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we've got another deal for you, especially for those that want to deep dive into the Stars' terrific Chiefs coverage. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. If you want more than just sports coverage, I know I do. Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And if you have trouble hunting down any of these offers, just send me an email, bkerkhoff@kcstar.com, and I'll get you to the right place. So whether it's the Sports Pass or full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Wednesday with another episode.